Hey everybody, and welcome. In today's video I want to talk to you guys about why I think there's only two photography filters that you guys need if you are landscape photographers. And no, these aren't filters that you put on in Lightroom right before you post on Instagram. These are filters that go on the front of your lens element. They allow you to achieve effects that you otherwise couldn't achieve in Photoshop. I'm going to show you guys a couple of my favorite filters, as well as a few products that I use to hold these filters, and a few products that I use so that I don't have to have as many filters. So I'm going to show you guys all of those. Product links will be down below. If at any point in time you see something you like, you can go down below, find the link to the products that I'm mentioning down below. So we're going to go ahead and get started with the only two filters that you need if you are a landscape photographer. So first, I've got my filters in this Mindshift Filter Nest mini bag. Now, this is a really cool bag because you open it and you have slots for all of your filters. And now, the first thing I want to talk about is how filters fit different size lenses. So first thing is first. So right here, I have this Tamron 28 to 200 lens, and it has a filter size here of 67 millimeters. So that means that a 67 millimeter filter will fit on the front, and a smaller filter won't fit, a larger filter won't fit without an attachment. Now, this is important because when you go to buy a filter, you might be tempted to just buy the cheapest filter for whichever one you buy because there's going to be lots of options, but you need to buy the one that fits your lens. If you don't know what size lens element you have, I recommend just Google searching your lens. So Google search Tamron 28 to 200 Sony lens filter size, and then you can find the size of the filter that you need. For most of my lenses, it's 67 or 72. Now, you can get by with just having two of these filters, even if you have multiple different size lenses, by purchasing the largest filter for the largest size lens that you have. So essentially what that would look like, let's say you have a 78 millimeter lens element and you also have some smaller ones. Purchase these two filters that I'm about to explain to you in 78 millimeters. And then what you're going to do is buy one of these nice little step-up rings here on Amazon. And I have a couple for different size lenses. They look like this. And the nice thing about this is rather than having to buy totally different size filters for my other lenses, I can buy these step-up rings, which cost like maybe $6 or $7 rather than buying a whole new like $150 filter. So these are really nice. I'll link these below for all different size lenses, depending on whatever front element that you have on your lens. So now that that's out of the way, I want to talk about why you would use a filter, because a lot of you guys might be thinking like, why do I really need this filter on the front of my lens? It's expensive. It's just one more thing to carry. Now, these two filters that I'm going to mention allow you to achieve effects that you otherwise could not achieve in your photography. You can't achieve it in Photoshop very easily. So the first of the two filters that I want to show you guys is called a circular polarizer. Now, here's my circular polarizer right here. Essentially, what this filter does is it is on two separate tracks here. So you can actually turn it to allow it to polarize. And this works just like, let's say, polarizing sunglasses. So if you've ever been out, like maybe on the lake and you're on a boat and you have polarizing sunglasses, you'll notice that it kind of cuts through the glare of the water. The polarizing filter does that, but in a much, much better way. So essentially it cuts glare and reflections off of things like water, off of things like leaves in the forest, tons of different things. It's going to cut glare off of it. It can also even add contrast to your sky. If you're shooting a sky that maybe doesn't have quite as much contrast as you like, you can sometimes polarize it and get a little bit more contrast. This is really important because a lot of these things, like I said, they can't be done in Photoshop, especially like removing glare off water. That's essentially impossible to remove the glare in Photoshop off the water, or removing it off of leaves in the forest. I'll show you guys a couple of examples here of how this works. It really works so well. If you're a landscape photographer, you have to pick up one of these circular polarizing filters. Super easy to use. I highly recommend getting a circular polarizer. I know there's a couple different kinds out there. The benefit of the circular polarizer is that it sits on the front of your lens, and as you're looking through your viewfinder or looking at your screen, you turn the filter, and that allows you to polarize your scene more or less depending on exactly what you're shooting. Now, the second filter that you guys absolutely must have is an ND filter. And essentially the way this works is it's just like sunglasses for your lens. Now, I don't use this a whole heck of a lot, but when I do use it, it really, really comes in handy and really helps me to create some really awesome images. Essentially what this does, like I said, it's sunglasses for your lens. It darkens your image. so that you can increase the shutter speed. You can have a longer shutter to capture movement. This can be really nice for getting things like car trails in the city, longer exposures of water moving. Maybe there's some leaves moving in the water, or that you really want a smooth, silky water. You can get things like moving clouds. There's tons of different things you could do with this that, like I said, you otherwise would not really be able to replicate in Photoshop. And these filters come in lots of different darknesses. So in addition to finding one that fits your size lens, which is going to be, the unit is millimeters. So mine that I have is 77 millimeters. I put it on one of those step-up rings to put it on one of my smaller lenses. Now these also come in different darknesses. This one that I'm holding right here is called a 5-stop. And I also have a 10-stop. This means that it's basically darkening 5 stops of light or darkening 10 stops of light, which is going to be really nice to take longer exposures. The 5-stop is really nice. It's right in the middle. It's not too terribly dark. It's definitely not too light either. Whereas the 10-stop is super, super dark. If you want to shoot like ultra long exposures, you want to get that 10-stop. Whereas if you just want to shoot some longer exposures, but they don't need to be super, super long, the 5-stop is right for you. If you're only going to buy one, I would recommend buying the 5-stop. It works really well to create those longer exposures. Like I said, it's not something that I'm using all the time, but a lot of times when the light isn't great or when I want to capture movement, it's something that really comes in clutch when I pull it out of my bag and I'm able to still get some really, really, really cool shots. So that is an ND filter. And when you guys are going to pick up these two filters, you may go on like Amazon or Adorama, and you may notice that there is quite a large difference in price. You can probably find an ND or a circular polarizer for as cheap as like 10 bucks, and you might find ones as expensive as 250. So what is the main difference in the price? And I've tried a lot of cheaper filters. I've tried a lot of more expensive ones. And I think ultimately the difference mostly is in the color cast and the quality of the materials. So the first big thing you're going to see if you buy a cheaper filter is probably when you get home, you're going to upload your photos to the computer and you're going to be scratching your head wondering why everything is looking so green, so yellow, so magenta, whatever it is. Usually those cheaper filters are going to have a color cast. Now, the other thing that is really nice on the more expensive ones is usually they're a little bit thinner. They're made with a little bit higher quality material. So you can see this circular polarizer here is made by Hoya. It's their HD3 circular polarizer. It's very, very thin. That's very important because a lot of times I'll use this on my 17mm lens. So when I screw this on, now you have an element in front of the lens that is protruding further. So if I got a polarizer that was a lot thicker and cheaper, I would have a lot of vignetting around the edges. But this really, really thin polarizer here is able to be close enough to the lens that it doesn't create that vignetting that it would on a fatter filter here. And then lastly, the build quality is really nice on this one, and a lot of the more expensive ones, they have little grooves. You probably can't see it here on YouTube, but they have little grooves, so they're easy to turn and they don't get stuck very easily, which is also really important. If you guys have used filters before, you probably know that they get stuck very often, especially as landscape photographers, where oftentimes we're shooting in adverse cold or hot conditions. And so you can oftentimes get them stuck. So it's nice to have a more expensive one that is kind of gripped on the outside and it's thin. Just really, really high quality stuff. If I were you guys, I would recommend when you're looking for a circular polarizer, find something in the maybe $100 to $200 range. And when you're looking for an ND filter, find something in the $75 to $150 range. I really, really like using Hoya filters. They send me tons of different filters to try. I've tried a bunch. I've also tried a couple other companies. And ultimately, I think the best bang for your buck is the Hoya filters. I'll include a link down below to the filters that I use. I use their circular polarizers, their HD3s, and I use the IRND ND filters as well. I'll include the link for both of those. And if you want to pick those up, you guys can use my code Jackson15 at checkout for 15% off. I just think they're awesome filters. They're not too terribly expensive like some of the other companies, but they're still very, very, very high quality. Like I said, in my opinion, best bang for your buck for all the filters that I've tried. So those are what I would recommend. And like I said, all you need is 2 filters. Pick up an ND5 and then pick up a circular polarizer, and I think you guys will be really happy. That's all you need. You can put it in this really nice bag. I'll link this bag down below. It's really nice to have, the Filter Nest Mini. And then again, remember, I will also link these step-up filters on Amazon. They're really, really cheap. Just make sure you buy the correct size for your lenses. And hopefully that's helpful for you guys. Hopefully that you will be able to kind of dumb down your filter kit. I don't know if this is like a hot take, but I know there's a lot of professional photographers that are out there carrying 10, 15, 20 different filters for all different sorts of things, for all different sizes of lenses. And I just find that having these two filters that fit every size lens with the step-up rings is the cheapest and most effective way to do it. I don't want to carry a bunch of extra gear. I don't want a bunch of stuff that I hardly ever use that I can't remember how to use, or I don't know how to use it well. I just want two filters that I can bring with me everywhere, backpacking, front country, whatever it is. I want those two filters, and I think that that is a really great workflow for you guys as well, especially if you're a newer photographer that hasn't yet purchased filters. So make sure you use that discount code and those links down in the bio. Pick up some filters. If you guys have any questions about filters or which ones to buy, feel free to drop a comment down below. I'm happy to answer it. And as always, please make sure to like and subscribe. I want to thank you guys so much for checking out this week's video. Always appreciate your guys' support. Thank you so much, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.